Hello, what's up everybody? Once again, another edition of 10 Minutes on the Clock here on the Real Sports Talk Network. Once again, what's good on the internet, what's good in life? I'm Akeem Balaam, aka LI495. So let's get right into it. NBA playoffs, and I want to start with the recently concluded series between the Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat. Remember Game 3? Remember after Game 3? That seems like such a distant memory. It seems right now like 100 years ago. Remember after Game 3, after the Indy Pacers completely blew out the Heat, total score 94-75, I believe it was. They absolutely blew them out of the gym. Remember that game? Yeah, and everybody was thinking that the sky was falling for the Heat. Wade only had 5 points. LeBron was missing clutch free throws. And everybody was thinking, you know what? The Miami Heat are going to get beat again. They have no bench, no Chris Bosh, and they're being exposed inside. Roy Hibbert is absolutely dominating them. Not to mention Danny Granger, not to mention David West, Paul George, and those young guys for the Indy Pacers are really stepping up against a team that was favored this year to win the NBA Finals. 3 games later, that looks like a distant memory, because Game 4, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade totally went off for a combined score of 70 points. I believe they scored either they went over 105 in that game. They went over 100 in that game, and LeBron and Wade had by far the lion's share of the points. They combined for 70 in that Game 4, and that was really the series that I think may have woke up the Miami Heat and may propel them to the NBA Finals, because the Indiana Pacers had this Miami Heat team in the ground. They had them buried. They had them beat. They had them down on the canvas. 1, 2, 3. All you had to do was get the 3 count, pin the dude, and absolutely and they were about to beat them, but they let them get up, and LeBron and Wade went off. And in the closer for Game 6, Dwayne Wade, 41 points. Let me repeat that: 41 points. 41 puntos. So that's what happened with the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. They totally let them wake up. They woke up a sleeping giant. And the reason for that was because at the start of that Game 4, it looked like it was going to be another Indiana Pacers coronation. But also in that Game 4, it looks like that they went away from their game plan. They started doing too much of this and not enough of this, i.e. passing the ball inside. When your team, this is so fundamental. This is so fundamental at this point. NBA coaches tell this to their players all the time. College coaches tell this to their players all the time. Heck, high school coaches and middle school coaches, heck, YMCA coaches tell this to their players all the time. When you see your opponents with a weakness, when you see your opponents that look volatile and look lost, you exploit that weakness. Why wasn't Roy Hibbert the centerpiece of the Indiana Pacers game plan going forward? I have no idea. No Chris Bosh. They were being exposed, and yet they tried to just jack up threes and jack up threes and jack up threes like they were in the three-point contest before the All-Star game. So for some reason, the Indiana Pacers totally went away from their game plan. LeBron and Wade were like, you know what? They're jacking up all these threes. They're bailing us the heck out. And what happened? Miami's moving on, and the Indiana Pacers are going fishing. And speaking of teams that are going fishing, the Los Angeles Lakers. And here's the interesting thing about the way that series played out with the Oklahoma City Thunder, that the Thunder won, and now they'll be facing the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals, a series that, you know, right now, I don't know who's going to win that series. I picked the Oklahoma City Thunder for some reason to go to the NBA Finals. I picked them to win the NBA Finals, but right now, at this point, I'm not so sure, because the San Antonio Spurs, they've won 18, 19, some odd straight games, and they right now look like the best team in basketball. They're not old, they're experienced. But going back to that Thunder-Lakers series, Game 4 at Staples Center, that was the deciding game, basically, because they blew another big lead, did the Lakers. And really, midway through that fourth quarter, I was starting to think, you know what, the Lakers may actually have a chance to win this series and come back, similar to the way they did in 2004 against the San Antonio Spurs. Now besides Kobe, I understand that this is a completely new cast, different cast of characters, but I was thinking that, you know what, outside of Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, Game 2, which the Lakers had blew, Game 3, which the Lakers had won, and I was also thinking midway through that fourth quarter, that Game 4, that the Lakers were outplaying the Oklahoma City Thunder 3 out of the 4 games that series. Well, did that all go to rest after that fourth quarter of that Game 4 at Staples Center as the Oklahoma City Thunder came back? They won, and now they won that series versus the Lakers in 5 games, and now they will be playing the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. And as far as the Miami Heat go, they will be waiting for the winner of the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics. And I understand the Sixers have been a very tough team this series. They beat the Chicago Bulls. They pushed this Celtics series to 7, which after the Celtics blew that big lead a few games ago at the Wells Fargo Center, you could tell that series was going to go 7, and indeed it has gone 7. But even though Tim is probably going to go ahead and disagree with me, I just don't see the Sixers winning a Game 7 on the Boston Celtics home floor. I don't see the Celtics losing Game 7 at the Garden in Boston. So I think the Celtics are going to win that series in that Game 7. So moving on from the NBA playoffs on to another NBA team that is making headlines all year long, it seems like, and they made a heck of a lot more of them this week. The Orlando Magic. You know, and this sort of brought me back to and this may be a little bit of a bizarre connection, but the soap opera industry has not been doing all that hot recently. Some TV station in Orlando, whether it's WESH-TV, the NBC affiliate, or WFTV in Orlando, the ABC affiliate, some TV station in Orlando has got to be thinking, you know what, this Orlando Magic season has been so tumultuous and it's been so much of a dramatic season that we ought to make a soap opera based on this season. And you know what? We're going to get some local Orlando actors to play Otis Smith and Stan Van Gundy and Dwight Howard and everybody in the Magic organization, because it's just been one thing after another. And this week they fired Stan Van Gundy and they fired Otis Smith, and now there are reports that the Magic may just get rid of the whole thing and clean house by trading Dwight Howard prior to the draft. So it turns out that Dwight Howard got what he wanted, and then Dwight Howard tried to make some statement like, "Oh, I had no involvement in the firings of Stan Van Gundy and Otis Smith. I did not have any improper input in the termination of jobs of both Stan Van Gundy and General Manager Otis Smith," in my Bill Clinton voice. So Dwight Howard tried to brush that off, trying to say that he had no input, but we all know that he had a lot of input. And then these bogus Shaq GM rumors, get away from that, because if he wanted to be a GM, he would have never become an analyst at TNT. He would have done that as soon as he retired from the Boston Celtics. So these were just bogus rumors trying to start nothing, because it's a boring time in the media. All they had to talk about is the NBA playoffs. NHL playoffs is also going on, build up to the Olympics. And speaking of the Olympics, huge Olympics news popped off this weekend at Sport Accord in Quebec City. Two big pieces of news. Number one, the IOC announced its shortlist for the 2020 Olympics, the cities that will go forward to bid for the 2020 Olympics: Tokyo, Madrid, and Istanbul, Turkey. There was some talk about maybe that Turkey wouldn't be able to bid for the Olympics because they're trying to do a bid for Euro 2020, but they got shortlisted along with Tokyo, Japan, and Madrid, Spain. I think Madrid is going to win that bid. And also the United States Olympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee also announced in Quebec that they have reached a new revenue-sharing agreement that will distribute money to the other organizations, to other companies' Olympic committees. So that's some big news, and the reason why that's some big news is because that will most likely enable the United States to bid for future Olympics going forward, whether it's the 2022 Winter Olympics, which are right now, there are rumors that Salt Lake City and Denver and Reno are possibly going to bid for the 2022 Winter Olympics, and also possibly the 2024 Winter Olympics could also be in play for the U.S. I believe there's a Facebook page started by people in the Philadelphia area trying to get Philly to bid for the 2024 Olympics. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Philly did bid for the 2024 Olympics. I mean, they went after 2016, but that didn't go too far. So that's what's up. That's the news, the sports news of this week. Lots of NBA playoffs, lots of Orlando Magic drama, and also lots of Olympic news this week. So rate, comment, react, reply, add, and subscribe. I look forward to reading your comments as always. I'm just one guy talking about nothing. So until next time, some dude on a motorcycle just went past the street. Hey! So until next time, I'm just one guy talking about nothing. Real Sports Talk Network, 10 minutes on the clock. See you on the internet someplace next week.